I'm Henri with TQ Construction, and we are a design build company renovating and building homes across the Lower Mainland. So I first heard about Breakthrough Academy through Brad Levine of Eco Paving. I think one of us was buying the other one a drink, and he just pulled me aside. He's like, "Hey, I found some guys who are onto something." And I was like, really early on, I was like, "Oh yeah, I don't know," and like kind of not sure because it was like super early days. I think it was at the time there might have been only maybe a dozen members. And so I wasn't really sure what was going on. And then I think I might have been one of the longest sales in BTA. So like Danny would call me probably about once a month. Brad would harass me every once in a while. He actually showed up to my office and walked me through an MVP file like on his own time. He still chirps me about it every once in a while, actually. And it was a little bit of like understanding what does BTA offer, and like does it match with what I actually need? And at first, it's like my first impression was just like, you know, they seemed like some really smart guys who kind of had some stuff that they knew what they were doing and some good documentation. But it was also like, what am I getting out of that aside from like some cool spreadsheets? And it was once I kind of dug into it a bit and really started like having a good conversation with Danny, who was kind of like their lead sales guy at the time, and talking through to him, going through that process, and really just trying to figure out like where I would fit in, and realizing what we needed at the time was kind of a bit more of a heavy like process-based documentation. Like we had a lot of really good general best practices that I think put us ahead of a lot of like local contractors in terms of like good financial management and a couple of things like that. But in terms of the processes for setting up a successful company that other people could run is something that was kind of a really important thing for us to work with Breakthrough Academy, and one of the main things that helped grab me on. Especially appealing because TQ Construction's a second generation business. So my parents started in the 80s, and like a lot of like entrepreneurs who just are successful for a long time, just basically like ran it by the seat of their pants and just figured out a recipe and then kind of followed through with it, but haven't like, it's not like super well documented or like well organized. And so a lot of what I spent the last few years doing is kind of restructuring the company and systemizing it. And Breakthrough Academy has been a big help for that. And since I've been working with Breakthrough Academy, I've been able to kind of delegate off a lot of what I do, and I kind of have honed down to essentially like a small handful of things I'm actually doing on a regular basis. Having really good people really helps. Like Sam, who you've been seeing walking around today, is like I wouldn't be able to be as flexible and fluid with what I do without his help, because he's like essentially knows as much as I do or more, and is even better at managing projects than I am. So it makes the kind of the overall company management and like sales business development that I do a lot more possible. A couple things. One was I had a brief meeting with Igor, which ended up going really well. Like I really was impressed by kind of like the depth of understanding of like how a trades business could work that came from his aspect. And then I had a meeting with Danny, and he kind of, again, he did a good job of painting a picture of like what it could be and like how you could actually set up your business and how Breakthrough Academy can help with that. And then that, and also just like really feeling like I needed help. Like I got to a point where I was like, I thought I'd taken a lot from other coaches and mentors I'd worked with before, and then kind of was doing my own thing for about a year or so, and then realizing that like I needed that structure and like the consistent feedback of both peers and of like a knowledgeable coach who could then kind of hold me accountable. Because I think one of the hardest things about like being a business owner is like by being the guy in charge, it's hard for anyone to really make you do anything. And so having a structure of like people and peers that you respect, like whether they are other contractors or business owners or a coach who's done it before or worked with other people, having them be able to kind of like ask you like, so what are you going to actually do about that? Like, oh, you have this problem, like, right, good, we understand it now let's solve it, and then apply it and like take those steps, because it's easy to just kind of be like a dog chasing cars. So you just kind of like, ooh, new problem, or new client I'm gonna hunt down, and then take your eye off of like that really big picture, like, you know, tough nut to crack, like high leverage piece that you can take on. Breakthrough Academy has created like a really solid, strong community of people that like really pull for each other. And like we're talking about competitors, like one of my favorite things is when I run into another BTA member on a job, like, and like, oh, like who are you bidding against? And it's like, well, a New Vision Project or DMC Contracting. And like you list off a couple, and I'm always like, oh yeah, I know those guys, they're solid. And it's like, and because one of the worst things for someone in my position, because like literally anyone can be a contractor. Like you have a phone number, you can be a contractor. Like you don't need anything. And it's to know people who I'm like working with or against people who actually can run a business and actually have a setup. So like I know they're pricing things properly and they're doing things ethically and have a good team that behind them. And so like there's a certain amount of structure. And a lot of those times it comes down to like, am I the closest, or does the client like me a little better? Or do we have like a one little thing that makes us a little more appealing? But like I'm happy to refer work to other BTA members because I know they'll be taken care of. And the same thing goes with trades on our projects. Like I can't have every single one of our trades partners be Breakthrough Academy members, but whenever I can, I usually know it's a good experience. And that like, again, that they're gonna be financially sound years to come, so that when it comes to like warrantying work and follow-up customer service, all that's gonna be taken care of. Because I've definitely gone through a process where we work with somebody and then we try to call them back a year later to fix something and their company doesn't exist. I would prefer any trades professional who's kind of looking to kind of like really set themselves apart and set themselves up for a kind of a little more of a secure and stable lifestyle. I find that a lot of tradespeople I meet who are very good at what they do, because like anyone who runs a trades business almost always starts off as a skilled tradesperson and not somebody who goes to business school and learns how to manage these things. So I think what the people who can be best served are anyone who's really good at what they do. People love what they do, but they maybe would like to have more time, better structure, and a little more control over their own day-to-day life. Okay, life before joining Breakthrough Academy was a little more chaotic, disjointed, and more jumping from thing to thing. As opposed to now, where I find I'm more intentional about how I handle my work and how I troubleshoot problems and how I basically put together our projects and work with my team. My lifestyle now is pretty great. Because of kind of a lot of the tools and lessons I've implemented through working with Breakthrough Academy, I think the company itself is more structured and stable, so it's less reliant on me being present or being involved in every decision. And I'm finding that because of that, and because my team is essentially pretty kick-ass and also able to kind of know with confidence what they're supposed to be doing, so there's less of me needing to be involved in every day-to-day decision. So my time is more free and more my own and self-directed, where before I was kind of a slave to the events happening around me.